Hello and welcome to tutorial 223, and I was asked whether there was a price profile at Markplex, and there wasn't. So what I've done is created something as a tutorial. So we're going to have a look at the program, and essentially what this program seeks to do is work out during a certain period of time how much time is spent at each price level. So you can see on the chart here at the moment, we have a chart, and you'll see that the longest times are being spent. Now, one thing you'll notice that happened there straight away is that the price has suddenly shifted. And one characteristic of this program is I've developed it using XY. So it's very good at giving you accurate bars, or at least relatively accurate bars. But what it's not so good at is when the underlying price changes in some way, as it just did then. So what you would need to do in a case like that is do Control R to rerun the program, and that will take several minutes to then recalculate, because what it's essentially doing is using a second PSP, or in other words a PSP with second time intervals, and it's going through literally each second and working out how much time that the time scale was for each second bar, and then it's putting those into a dictionary and subsequently into two vectors, then sorting the value vector, and then plotting or rather drawing the longest as the width of the chart, and the rest relatively smaller, and that also you'll see it's changing color. So it's made the longest is green, the shortest is magenta, and then the color varies exactly between them. So that's an example on this chart. If we had a look at another chart, for example Amazon, you'll see I ran this a little while ago, so what I'm going to do is just press Control R so we see the latest. And what I've done is made it just so that we're seeing the information from the beginning of the visible chart. So you've got the most up-to-date information. But what you do need to know is that even though if the price changes, if the chart develops like it just did then the histogram is out of date. So you need to press Control R again to get an updated view of the histogram. So it's good at just getting a quick impression of where the price spent most of the time. Of course, you could use this in conjunction with something that shows you the volume at price levels, and as well. So anyway, a couple of charts there that just to demonstrate. What I'm going to do is go into the program and quickly talk through that, and hopefully this might be useful to you. I've included copious notes. First thing to note is I've set infinite detect to false, and that is because the program is actually doing quite a lot of number crunching, as you can imagine. We've got the namespaces, and I've put next to them what each namespace includes, and then I won't go through the inputs and the variables at the moment. Let's just go through the various methods. In fact, let's start with the one statement. So this runs when the program is first applied, and we're using a PSP. So in this case, what I've done is I use the toolbox. Then if you double click on the PSP, and having done that, subsequently you look at the designer generated code, you can copy that code into the program. So you can set all your parameters and then copy the code into the program. So we've set it up as a new price series provider called PSP. We're using the symbol on the chart. We're saying it's chart type bars. It's a seconds chart, seconds PSP. Interval span 1, data range type bars. Then we just take a little break from the PSP and we set up this left DT. This is the value, the date time value of the left of the chart. We're using get app info AI left disp date time, and we convert that into date time using this syntax here. Having done that, we continue with the PSP. I'm just saying we don't need volume or tick data, and this doesn't need to be real time. And then we determine if the chart is local or exchange time, set the time zone of the PSP appropriately. We name the PSP and we load it. Having done that, we set up a dictionary, which we're calling price timer. We set up a new vector called keys and a new vector called vals. And then we determine the number of decimal places required for the symbol that we're working on, because that's going to be used as the key in the dictionary. Then we set up a charting host, and we'll look at that in a moment, why we use a charting host. But essentially we need to know information like the width of the chart in pixels and other information. So that is the one statement. The next thing we're seeing just above it is a method to sort the vectors or sort the dictionary, but I'm going to just not look at that for the moment. Let's just keep going up, and here we have the charting host on initial update. So you may recall when we set up the charting host, if we go down again to the one statement, we set up the charting host, we gave it a name, and then we set up this on initial update. When that is fired, then we'll be running this code here, which is where a lot of the processing takes place. The charting host, that's going to give us the width and the height, as I mentioned, and we're going to be using those because we're going to be plotting using XY. And the reason we're using XY is we don't want to be constrained to just plotting to the bars, but we want to be able to plot to the pixel level. And then we get down into this begin end statement. So we count the number of values in the PSP, and incidentally we set the first date of the PSP to be the PSP range first date, so we use that there, and that means that we're going to get information just for the last date. But what we do now is in this CH on initial update is we go through the PSP, so we're doing a while statement. In other words, while count is less than count minus 1, and we're going to increment the count each time. And we say if the PSP time for this counter is greater than left date time, because we don't want any bars before that, then we're going to be putting things into our dictionary. So essentially what this is saying is if the dictionary contains already a value for the close, then we're going to add an item to that value, to that item in the dictionary, which would include or would add the time between the current second and the previous second. If, however, there is not already an item in the dictionary for that price level, then what we do is we add an item to the dictionary, and we also add the time value in total seconds. So here we're adding the value to the existing value that's already stored in the dictionary for that price level. If there is not a key for that particular price already, then we add a key for the price and add that first time difference in seconds. Having done, we go through all of the values in the PSP. Having done that, we store the keys into a vector called keys, and we store the values into a vector called vals. And we then do we then run this TCK vector sort. So this is a method that sorts the values such that the values we want to get to a situation where we have the value with the longest time right down to the shortest, and then we can apportion the length of the bars accordingly. Now I'm not going to explain all this now, but what I've done is added in the program and on the tutorial page a more detailed explanation of how the sorting works. So there's an explanation of the tick vector sort and an explanation of what it does. There are various ways of developing a method to sort something like this. This one uses the selection method, and that's all explained in the notes. Okay, so having done that, we've done our processing. We've sorted the dictionary by sorting the vectors effectively, and we can then plot the histogram lines. And the two parts of that: one, we need to work out what the color is, and we do that using this syntax here, grad color, and then we get the RGB values. And then the second thing, which I think is perhaps a bit more important, is how we make those lines proportionate to the values. So the first thing we do is we need to convert price to pixel values. So we know the chart height in pixels, and we know the price difference. So we've got the high display and low display. We divide one from the other. That is the denominator. Then we take the key and we convert it to a number, and then we subtract that from high display, divide it by high display minus low display, and then times it by multiply it by chart height, and that will show us where to plot that or draw that on the chart. And then the drawing syntax here is standard drawing syntax. I've included it just above, but we say rectangle create, then we need to have 1 point. So we're drawing the lines effectively as rectangles. We're using the XY point. The first one is 0 because it's on the left of the chart, and the next one is the histlen, and that is what we've just calculated here. And then similarly, we do the same for the second point, and then we calculate the actual width of that line using chart width minus the value of this particular item, in other words how long for that particular one, and dividing it by vals 0. Now val 0, since we've sorted vals, val 0 is going to be the largest value in the vector, or the joint largest value in the vector. Then we set the color using the value that we just created up in the grad color value 4 calculation, and then we set it as persist and we add it to the chart. So I think that is just about everything, and what I'll do is I'll try and add a few more pieces of information on the Markplex page. As I said at the beginning, bear in mind that as the charts develop, this is no longer valid. It's something that you would just run just to give yourself an idea at for example, the beginning of using the chart. And and another thing I should just mention is if you include a change in day, as you could do quite easily, what will happen is, because there is the change of date, particularly for a stock like Amazon, you'll see that we have one very, very long time because it's effectively going overnight. So that basically outranks all of the others. So you just get one long line and perhaps some smaller ones that you hardly see on the left. So in other words, it's best not to include the change of date certainly for an equity, and perhaps even for the futures. Okay, hopefully you might find this tutorial and program useful. By the way, if you do see any errors, then please let me know. And also please take the opportunity to sign up to the Markplex email list, and I'll let you know when I create new programs or tutorials. And also consider GoldPass, more structured TradeStation easy language training. Thank you very much.